when we had set this weekend up, we all knew we were going to be there. Bob Bindig had asked me if we could possibly get about 10 minutes alone with you so that we could all ask you all these, they could all ask you all these questions and everything. It was very exciting. Nobody got much sleep. We had these 4 in the morning rap sessions before, you know, the thing started and so on. And you agreed to it, although you had a very busy schedule. And one of the nice things was that you gave us about a 2-hour breakfast. Not only that, but you picked up the bill for breakfast.
Shouldn't do things like that. Never get anywhere that way.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And somebody was out in the car waiting for us to leave, and they were very angry when we told them we would be out soon, and an hour later they were still in the car waiting for us.
We had several of those overlaps, I'm afraid, out there, but it was tightly scheduled, and it was impossible to just walk away from something sometimes, especially with the kids. When the kids are asking questions, especially, they expect to. They've waited a long time to do this. The guys in the fan club understand problems.
Yeah.
The kids don't. But they were marvelous, by the way, the young people who were involved in all these interviews and things.
Lucy's assistants and all?
Yeah.
They did a wonderful job. She had put together this beautiful exhibit. Why don't you talk about your impressions of the exhibit in the library?
The exhibit was fascinating for one thing because the different kinds of things that I have done over the years which were there, which had nothing to do with putting there. Willie had sent them, you had sent them, other people had sent them material, and I had sent some too. But you forget, for instance, what it looked like to see a drawing that we had done, Dick Rockwell and I worked on, of the founding of my chapter of the Sigma Chi fraternity on the Ohio State campus. And it hangs over the fireplace in the Sigma Chi house, but I very seldom go to the Sigma Chi house.
Yes.
So that was there in the exhibit. And looking at it in conjunction with these other things, including the Boy Scout merit badges and things like that.
Yes, those were in a glass case, weren't they? That was a beautiful exhibit.
It was handsomely hung.
And it started, the first case started with your baby pictures.
Yes, yes.
And went all around the room.
The bare-tailed shots on the rug.
I don't remember that one.
There's one in there somewhere. I don't remember whether it was in the exhibit or not, but Lucy's got one. A real bare-tailed shot.
And tell us about your party, your people, your friends that were there, the Brennans, and Ruth Dean.
Oh yes, Ruth Dean
Hesper
came from here. Hesper Anderson, with whom, by the way, we also had an interview with these journalism kids. And the original idea was to talk to me about cartooning, but all these kids want to be script writers in Hollywood, and here was Hesper right there, and they could ask her all these direct questions, and she was wonderful about it. And they were being polite, trying to be polite, and talk to me once in a while. I made a couple of drawings for them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was cute. It was cute because you knew darn well what they were all interested in. There were one or two cartoonists there, like Brian Campbell, his name, and one or two other guys who were hoping to have careers. But the rest of them were all writers. Journalism school.
Well, they could learn a lot from you about being a writer, too.
Well, that too, but they never expected to be doing this. They would like to be writing scripts in Hollywood, though. And here was Hesper, who had just written Touched by Love, and trying to think of titles that the viewer listeners might remember. Touched by Love is hot now because it was just on television.
Oh.
And she wrote the thing about the guy whose wife accused her husband of raping her.
Oh, yes.
It was the first big international case of this kind.
Oh, that was Hesper fictionalized them?
Yes.
Well,
I did the screenplay.
To touch on this writing thing a minute, Leonard Starr has just written an appreciation of you, which is going to go in the Steve Kenyon magazine, and he feels that you taught us a lot about dramatization, and he says that comic strips are no more about art, about illustration, than movies are about photography. Don't you think that's a significant remark?
Yes, it is, especially with Lenny, because he's a real student of this art, and certainly good at it too, I must say. Boy, he can draw like a whiz. And learned how really good an artist, a good journeyman practitioner he is when he had to take over Orphan Annie and did such a job on it. He also writing Orphan Annie.
But he feels that your writing abilities have been neglected when people talk, because your art is so good, it sort of overshadows everything.
That's true. Of course, anybody who thinks it through realizes that it's the story that holds the interest, not the drawing, but if you can give them that much extra. As Billy Rose used to say, always give your customer a little bit more than he expects. That's what keeps them coming back year after year.
Mm-hmm. Milt, were you good in English in school?
Yes.
And did you have a particular English teacher who inspired you, or?
Oh, yes.
I know you loved books. Was it your love of books that has really inspired this writing?
In the beginning, yes. And by the way, just as a footnote to that, there's a man named Edward Brusk, B-R-U-S-K. And when I went to Dayton to school after having left Hillsborough and Redlands, 7th grade at Ruskin School, and I thought I was a pretty hot shot with this weekly composition sort of thing. So I wrote the composition the first week, expected to get the gold star and all that stuff. And when the teacher said, well, the best composition this week was written by, and I was ready to stand up and take a bow. And she said, Edward Brusk. And I thought, who the hell is this kid? And so I don't think once during that whole 7th grade did I beat old Ed out. He knocked me down every week. And then when we went on into the 8th grade, I began to pull ahead a little bit, but not much. Now, on into high school, and our paths didn't cross there because we just didn't happen to have an English class together. And he's in the used car business. I see him every once in a while. He never was able to do what he wanted to do, I'm sure, which was be a writer. And he never says so, but it hangs in the air when we talk, and it's always fun to see him. And he's very successful, used car salesman.
And you're a very successful English composition writer,
well,
too.
I got the brass ring. It just came up my turn.
You would have made a wonderful teacher, too. Have you ever thought of being a teacher?
I don't think so, because I got angry with people who don't respond. If the students are responding, fine. But if they aren't, I haven't time to try to pull them out of their door.
I see.
I taught a class in cartooning at the YMCA in Dayton at one time. And it got to be a bloody bore because one or two guys were doing what they came to do and became successful at it, made a living at it, I mean. And the others were just putting in time. I don't even know why they bothered to sign up, because it cost them some money, like a couple of dollars.
That can really break the spirit of a good teacher if they don't have somebody responsible.
Yeah.
But Milt, when anybody visits your studios or any of your apartments, the domineering thing is that you have plenty of bookcases. Sometimes the bookshelves go from ceiling to floor and take up entire walls. And you have one of the finest libraries I have ever seen. You once told me as a child that there was a man that you visited that was your first introduction to a great library.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, there were two, actually. One was a lawyer, and his office was next door to the Western Union office where I worked. And he made everything of his accessible to me. The trouble with me was that I didn't know what I wanted. He didn't have all these books in his office. He had all the law books, of course, but not the juicy ones like Shel